All right, I think we are live and kicking. Okay, if yeah, Alex just messaged. If you guys could drop a note and just for us to make sure that everything is yeah, that's good. That's good. I think it's working. I think we're live. All right. Well, let's jump into this, and I'm just setting this up as well to make sure everything is going well. Cool. Well, fantastic. We've got a large number of people, very engaged. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. My name is Shaheen, and we're going to be talking about 6 ways of connecting your content marketing with ROI. But before we jump into that, I'll talk a little bit about Growth Colony. So Growth Colony is a community of marketers that we focus on bringing experts in and talking about some of the areas that they specialize in, just like we have today. And obviously, during these crazy times, it's probably most important for us to keep doing this. It is. I'll be very honest with you guys. It's hard, just because everything is just going crazy. But we are trying to keep the rhythm and make sure that we're bringing more relevant content as well, and making sure that we keep the lights on. But I'm really appreciative of you all logging in and being with us as well. So most probably all from home. So thank you so much for that. So as I said, I'm Shaheen from X Growth, and today we're with Donald Scott from First State Super, and we're going to be talking about content and ROI and how those two are tying with one another. I think it's an important topic to talk about, especially now. I think there's a lot of nervousness in the market, and marketing is one of the areas that unfortunately gets hit quite a lot when things are a little bit shaky, especially in medium businesses, medium and small businesses, which is unfortunate because business probably should be doing the opposite when everybody goes quiet and nobody is putting their message out there. But it is a reality, and it is what happens. So I think it's very important for us to talk about, how are our activities contributing to the revenue of the organization and the overall growth, especially in hard times like these. So let's dive into it. I know Scott, you have a couple of slides, but before we jump into slides, Scott, thank you so much for being with us here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure.
It's a great little organization, and it's great to be talking B2B stuff. I know very few people are doing it at the moment, really focusing on that area, and I think it's a missed opportunity. So it's great.
No, thanks so much.
Really catching in with it.
We're super excited having you as well. But for those who might not be familiar with you and your work, can you give us like a quick 30-second pitch of who are you and what you've been doing, and even a little bit about First State Super?
Yeah, so my background is in content writing. So I started off as a junior level content writer at a small web design agency, and kind of fell my way into marketing. Recently, before First State Super, I was the head of content at WME, one of Australia's largest agencies. I worked with some really great clients there, and we really focused on building ROI and not just pumping out content, which I think some people have focused on, but creating content that worked within the business and with an overall marketing strategy. I was also at Drive, running the content and SEO over there at drive.com.au. I didn't know much about cars, but did manage to work with some great journos over there and turn some really good content out that generated the actual revenue side of the business, which was quite good. And now at First State Super, focusing on the B2B marketing role, where I'm working mainly on the content side with a great team, and we're really trying to bring in some value to the businesses we work with and help them communicate with our members. First State Super itself is one of Australia's largest super funds. We really focus on doing the right thing for members. That's the core of what we do. So a lot of the work we do is educational, especially in marketing. So we're not just about bringing in new members, helping them do the best with their super. So that's a lot where the content comes in and where we actually try and deliver some really strong ROI with the content we produce.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And and can you maybe quickly explain to us, because when we talk about super, a lot of people are imagining, superannuation, it's more B2C. What does B2B, how does that play out in the super world?
So if you think about superannuation, a lot of the people listening will have just joined a default fund if they haven't actually investigated their superannuation, and that's usually organized through the super fund partnering with a business. So we offer services like single touch payroll, a clearinghouse, and technical support to businesses to help make paying super easier. And the kind of exchange of that is we're usually the default fund. So if someone hasn't chosen a super fund, you automatically join us. That's the way the industry kind of works. So on a B2B perspective, what we try and do is add more value and then pass that value on to our members that are in an organization. So there's a really strong link between financial health and employees actually being able to focus on their work. So if someone's worried about their finances, they spend a lot of time outside of their, when they're at work, focusing on the wrong thing. So a lot of our work is helping employers educate their team and their employees to make smart financial decisions. And that lets them focus on work. So we partner with organizations as an engagement piece and really add to a HR function.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, before we jump into, thank you very much for that explanation. Before we jump into the presentation itself, I'm just noticing that Sandra's saying that she's having difficulty hearing you.
Yep.
Is anybody else having difficulty hearing Donald at the moment? If nope. Okay. No, I think it seems like it's all right. Fixed now. All right. Fantastic. So let's go ahead. Let's go and dive into it and talk content and ROI.
All right, so we'll jump right in. Hopefully everyone can see the slides now. Look, we're going to start off really defining what content marketing is for me. Now, I know there's a lot of definitions out there, but just to make this webinar simple, we're going to focus on how I'm talking about it. Not that it's necessarily the one way to talk about content marketing, but it is how I'm going to be talking about it, so we can link ROI to the way I propose content marketing works. So what is content marketing? It's just marketing. Let's not get too confused about, creating that best piece of content that's ever been out there. No, that's not what content marketing is. It's about understanding that marketing performs better when customers get delivered a strong story and narrative that works across every piece of communications. So it's understanding that content doesn't work by itself. It works in an environment, and every piece of marketing you put out is part of your story. So that's a really big part of how we deliver a strong content marketing campaign. It's about actually being holistic. So whether it's blog article, white paper, social media post, whatever it is part of a larger narrative. And that's something that people should really focus on, because just getting your marketing right, you should have a strong narrative, and content's about building on that. So when we talk about ROI, we're not talking about one single great piece of content that generated you 10 sales. We can't talk about it like that. That's not how we can approach it, because most times you cannot say, I wrote this blog article and I got 5 sales. Because, well, in the B2B world, that's not how you do sales. So you have an entire sales funnel. We need to understand how content works throughout it. And when we talk about ROI, we're not talking about a single piece of content delivering value. We want to look at a test case. So if you've been running your marketing for 12 months, we're going to say, great, your average sale cost you $200 to generate, $300 to generate. Now, by bringing in a strong content marketing strategy, we want to lower that value. And that's where we start looking at the actual ROI. So that's how I'm going to approach ROI today, not necessarily how you can generate $500 from a blog, how you can bring in smart, well-written content, well-designed content that lowers your overall sales price.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
That's what we're going to start as our basis. So point number 1, prioritize the right piece of content for your biggest sales funnel hole. Now, this is something that I've seen when I was in the agency world, a lot of people not understand. Businesses will come saying, I want a blogging strategy, I want this strategy. What companies haven't done is actually find where their sales process is failing and start think of how they can produce great content that fits into that area. So starting from basically our sales funnel, because this is what we're thinking. We've got a sales funnel. Most B2B businesses will have that right now. You will have a sales funnel in place. You need to analyze where your sales funnel is going well and where it's not. So you're looking at awareness. Is your name out there? It's a really big question a lot of people will have and will be asking, are you actually getting out there? Now, if you're not getting out there, then you need to look at awareness content. And in the B2B world, that could actually be partnership activity. You could want to find someone that you partner with really well that makes sense. You know, it could be a similar organization that does something slightly different and has a great rep that you can leverage off. You might want to do content in partnership with them, sponsor an event. Maybe you need to focus on some SEM, you know, spend some money there, or maybe it's SEO, social media. That's what you need to actually focus on. So if you don't have awareness in your business, you need to look at video, blog posts, infographics, and thought leadership. That's what you need to decide and how you actually need to start generating ROI, because that's where you're letting yourself down. If it's lead generation, so you're just struggling to actually get someone to go to your website and actually put in their email, you're probably actually looking at a website journey that's your problem. So maybe you don't have a strong draw card to get that first email. Maybe you need a white paper. Maybe you need to run a webinar like we're doing right now. Maybe you need to be offering some free value to get someone into the door to start considering you. Free info sessions and consultations always work. Stuff like a little bit of value adds that don't cost anyone money, but gets you that email or that piece of contact. You want to start that conversation. Maybe you're failing in the lead to opportunity. Like, so this can be a big area where you've got a prospect, but you can't get them to commit and really come in for an actual sales call meeting. So are you nurturing your leads properly? Do you have an email strategy where you're delivering content across a month or two? And this is actually where I'd start to say you need to engage really well with your sales team, because I've experienced a really big disconnect between marketing and sales, where we have this great story, we've produced all this content, it's beautiful, and you know everyone's on board except for the sales team, because either they disagree with you, and they could be right. Especially if you have a business development team who are in the trenches, you might be doing something wrong and not listening to them. But either way, there's a disconnect. So they're talking their version of the company, which may not be the one what you want to sell. So you may have this content that's going out that doesn't match with the sales call. So actually understanding your relationship with your business development team and your marketing, that's really important to actually get ROI from all this content you produce. Because if there's disconnect, if you've got a phone call happening from a BD team member who's saying X, Y, and Z, and you've got marketing that is saying the opposite, no one's going to be actually believing either of you. So you're going to get a big problem with actually getting that sales call through the door. Closing an opportunity, this is a big one. Having a professional prospectus, and a lot of people don't necessarily consider this part of marketing, but it really is. Having that final sales document that looks schmick, that that really sells who you are, what you are, gives you the value, lays out everything you're selling to that person. That's a big part of marketing, and often that's actually done by the sales team. Like, maybe marketing's helped at some point, but you'll have your sales team writing it, and rightly or wrongly, they might not be a professional designer. It might not have gone through that. It might just not have that cutting edge look that you want to actually close a deal. So you've done all this hard work. You've got your funnel working great, but then the final piece, the final presentation doesn't cut it. And that's a huge failing, especially in the B2B world, because you're not the only one in that conversation. You're competing against 2 or 3 businesses. If your final presentation does not get close that deal, you're probably not going to get that deal. So I think as marketers, we need to sit down with our BD teams and really have that say in the final piece of content that gets delivered. And even if we're talking about that final one of the things that is often overlooked is that post final meeting comms. So maybe you actually need to work and design that and have a really pretty or well thought out email going out afterwards to try and help nudge that final sign. And obviously the biggest one, like a big one that I would say is overlooked in the B2B world is retention and nurture. Because often we will get a deal and we'll be like, great, we've got a 12-month contract or we've got a 2-year contract. We'll just rely on our account managers to keep delivering great service, which hopefully we can. Hopefully everyone on this call has an amazing product, an amazing service that every one of their clients wants to come back to, and they're never going anywhere. But we don't live in that world. We need to add value throughout the process. And that's actually really important for marketing, to be delivering content, because that's free. Obviously not entirely free, but the lower cost there, where you can extend a contract by 12 months because you may not have been delivering the best service, but you've always been delivering great content, and they've felt like they've been nurtured, they feel like they've been valued, and they feel like they've learned something other than what they paid you for. That's huge. So if you understand where your greatest need is when we're talking ROI, that's how you can then go, great, okay, I've got this hole. If I need results right now, and let's talk about the situation we're in right now with Corona. If you are in a sales pickle now and you need to get a conversion through the door, where do you need to invest money in content now that will get a result? Let's be honest, in B2B world, it's probably not going to be awareness right now, because we all have pretty long sales funnels. But maybe you need to start thinking, okay, I need to hold on to my current clients. So I need some nurture content. I need to be right now adding value. So the type of content you can look at for nurture, then there's quite a lot of it, is stuff like what we're doing right now, a webinar or thought leadership. So you could actually be going like, you know what, a lot of my clients, they're sitting at home doing nothing. I need to start teaching them things. So if you can start adding value that way now, you are getting the best value you possibly can from your content. And that content that you produce for your retention will also be useful later. And that actually goes into our next point about reusing content. All this content does not sit by itself. So if you're producing a case study to help turn a lead into an opportunity, that case study is probably going to also be a great thing to push as a retention strategy or even an upsell strategy. Maybe you have someone who's on your gold package and you want to show what great the gold package is versus the bronze package. So you produce a case study and you then nurture your bronze package people with that information. So you can actually try and show the value of being on that next level up. And that's a really important piece of content to consider.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I think you're definitely right on a lot of points there. I think one is, you're right. We got to listen to salespeople. They have amazing insights sometimes. What I've also found is you sometimes have to educate the sales team about what do you mean about content. Our sales team at X Growth, we had to talk about what do we exactly mean by content? What can be a content piece, right? And after getting that education, right, and we sitting down and really explaining to them, we start to see really cool topics coming from their side, and they're saying, can we do a video on this topic? Can we do a blog on this topic? So I think just make sure that it's not just, hey, can you tell me what do you want? Like, what kind of content? Because they don't speak that language, and it's really hard for them to get their head around what you're talking about. The other thing that you mentioned was retention. I think retention, especially today with the current situation, is going to be a lot harder topic than it was 3 weeks ago, because they're going to be. I was just speaking to one of our advisors in Austin, and you could see, and he was showing me the statistics from G2 Crowd, right? And they did a study of a lot of SaaS organizations. 14th of March was this drop in, like, massive increase in churn from customers, right? And I think that retention component is going to become a lot more important the next couple of weeks as we go through this thing. But yeah, really good points.
Yeah, retention is going to be tough. Yeah, that's a really good point. So moving on, point number 2, utilize your content more. So I did mention that. I'm going to really focus on this because this is so important. Content's not cheap unless basically you're putting your own time in. And actually right now, putting your own time in might be great because you might have a little bit of spare time with less client work. Maybe you can actually create some organic content yourself right now. That would be awesome. But if you're not and you're paying an agency for design work, for video work, content is expensive. So we really need to use our content as much as possible. And I mentioned case studies. Case studies are a great example where you can use them as a lead gen opportunity or even something to help you in your conversion funnel. But you can also use it as a retention method. Really showing the value you offer clients to other clients is really important. Videos, if you're getting a video shot as a welcome journey, so if you're a SaaS company, maybe you have an automatic welcome journey that goes out once someone signs on. And if you're like us, maybe it has a video of your CEO saying welcome to the company. If you recut that or you ask your CEO the right questions, you can then use that as in your conversion funnel as well. There's a whole lot of ways to duplicate content work without duplicating cost. And that's really important because if we want to deliver ROI, we have to lower our content generation costs. It's a tough game, especially right now. I imagine a lot of people don't have a lot of spare cash to spend on content generation. So where you can produce once and cut multiple times. It's a really big step in actually generating really strong ROI.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think what is good to also think about is like 3 components of your content, right? So think about medium, think about funnel stage, and as you mentioned earlier, and then think about context. And then you could mix that up in so many different ways. Medium could be, LinkedIn, YouTube, your blog post, whatever it is. Your funnel stages, as you explained, and then the context of it could be a case study. It could be a simple written blog post on a certain topic. So you could mix all those 3 components together and find different ways to repurpose it.
Yeah, and it's a great cost-saving measure. We all know how much agencies cost to produce content. So just think about it. And the important thing to do is actually think about it before you get the first piece of content done. It's much harder to approach this once it's been produced. It can be done. So if you've got a great blog post that went well, you could probably expand on it and turn it into a case study or something else in the future. And that's a great strategy. But if you can do it before you actually produce a piece of content, it will go easier. Point number 3, ensure every step of your campaign has a clear objective that has a clear dollar value. Now, this is really important. And this goes back to our discussion about content marketing and an ROI. You actually need to understand what every single action you want to do costs right now before you start doing your content. Now, you may have already started doing it now, but good content marketing will lower the cost of producing certain things. So what you need to actually understand is, what does a click cost right now? So if you're using search engine marketing, how much do your top key terms, keywords cost you? So if you're paying $20 a click right now, which you easily could be, how many clicks can you produce for less? So we're talking about an organic strategy there. How much is it going to take you? How many pieces of content? How many links are you going to have to buy? How much is that going to cost versus your current SEM spend? And then that's how you actually need to look at how you've generated ROI through a piece of content. Because if you're going to say these pieces of content are based on generating clicks, this is how much a click currently costs me, that's how you need to be able to show ROI to the rest of the business. Oh, I've lowered our clicks we develop by, we now create 3,000 extra clicks. Our SEM spend has been able to drop because of that. Here's how we've saved you money. And obviously an organic strategy is long-term as well. So you could say, I've now saved you that much money every month for the next 12 months. So that's a good way to show ROI. And that's a way you should actually be measuring an awareness piece of content. And how much does acquiring an actual email cost? This can be very expensive depending on what type of marketing activity you're running. So you might be generating emails from an event. So you're like, and how expensive is events? If any of you guys have been running events, that's it. Hiring a room, catering, marketing for the actual event, only to get an email. Now, this is actually a great time to look at moving online and generating online content like this webinar to generate email contacts. So that's what you could be doing. And if you're a marketer right now, that's what you should be proposing to your business. If you've been running events, don't stop doing events, go online, because it's a hell of a lot cheaper and you could really show ROI. So how much does it cost to acquire an email right now through your current marketing? And what content can you create that will generate emails? And that's how you actually can start talking about ROI. So even if you produce a case study, a video case study, just a downloadable PDF, if it's gated, how much, by gating that great piece of content, how many emails have you generated, and what is the cost of those emails compared to your traditional marketing methods? That's how you want to show ROI. And then finally, obviously, what does getting a sales call cost? You often can't put the final sale, especially in the B2B world, out your marketing and string it all together. It's going to be very hard to do the maths on that. You can obviously look at top line numbers and say, we've done this marketing activity and this has dropped the overall acquisition cost. But there's a lot of variabilities in that. And I would argue that most times when you do that, someone will say, no, I've just had a great month. So sales guys will often try and do that, and they're often not wrong. So don't discount them being good at their job all down to marketing. But if you can say, okay, just to get that person on the phone to call you, this usually costs me $200. Of all the marketing activity I've done, the SEM, the organic, everything I've done usually costs me $200. If you've shaved $50 off that, great work. That's a piece of content you've developed that's done that. So that's where we want to actually talk about ROI. And that's why you actually need to, when you're creating a piece of content, when you're creating the campaign that it goes in, establish a target dollar value for your activity that you want to actually generate. So don't just say, I want to create sales, because it's the wrong way to look at a marketing campaign, because every campaign has a step. You have your sales funnel, build the campaign to that, and have a dollar value, because that's how you actually will deliver ROI.
No, very true.
So moving on from that one, step 4, understand your lead opportunity and acquisition costs. So this is actually a really big failing in a lot of businesses, actually understanding how much everything costs you and actually how much space you have to play in the budget. One of the biggest struggles I've actually found is the profit per client when I've been dealing with businesses. They don't know the lifetime value of their clients. So they often say, oh, the first month, someone pays $600, they pay $1,000. I can spend $200 of that on marketing. But what they don't actually understand is that client, that based on the data they should have, lives for 12 months and they have an X amount of profit margin. So they limit their marketing to the wrong dollar value. So it means there's a lot of cost and fudge in there that currently just sits in profit, and they're making more profit than they thought, which is great. But it means that they may be limiting how much they're willing to spend to actually acquire a new client, which is really tough. So you might be only given $200 when you need more money to spend somewhere else. So understanding the margins will actually allow you to create a content marketing strategy that's geared better to what you can and can't do. But also what I found in the agency world is a lack of understanding of the position a company's in. And they'll often ask for a campaign that delivers a whole lot more than what their budget can do. So understanding that and actually working within a constraint will actually make you be able to do better marketing. Because you might say, look, right now, and in the situation we're in right now, I have limited funds to spend. So I need a strategy that is low cost. So maybe what you need to do right now is actually focus on the low cost marketing activities like blog writing, organic strategy that will slowly build up to a great ROI. And you need to sell that to the business. Like, you only have so much money right now. to spend on marketing, and that's always underspent, especially right now. But we can do a lot of activity that is low cost on outside agencies, but will have a long-term benefit. So when we get out of this period that we're in right now, we're sitting well. And just pre-shadowing the next point, there's a great amount of ROI available in organic thought leadership pieces.
Yeah, that's very true. I think one of the important, maybe 2 points here. I think especially when somebody's working with an agency, agency would come and say, here's the dollar value that we got your leads, right? But the reality is that's not the dollar value that the lead costs you. It's also the cost of the agency, right? So how much are they charging for acquiring the lead? Now, they're not going to report on that. You got to do that math on your own as well and figure that out. The other component is also your own time. So if you're spending time on something, the best way to do it is to factor your own time in. Sometimes when you do that, you go, oh my God, that's so expensive. But it would be best practice to do that. And I forgot the second point that I wanted to mention. Oh, no. The second point that I wanted to mention was sometimes it's also hard to measure ROI. We were talking to the CMO of Mercer at one of our previous events, right? And she was talking about how we definitely have certain cost factors that we measure, but then there are certain things that we put in the brand bucket. And it's very difficult to to say, here's the ROI on this, right? So I think, and that's important for business owners as well, because a lot of business owners are like, all right, so what is exactly the ROI? Like, give me the dollar figure. I'm going to write it down here. I think it's very important to take into consideration that there is going to be some kind of work. Now, that could be maybe website redevelopment. It could be, the list goes on, but some work should be looked at as we're investing in the brand. And then there's some work that, hey, this should definitely be measured against ROI and see what we're getting out of it. I think those are two things that.
And brand work is a great example there of something that's so hard to actually show ROI, because it doesn't generate sales immediately. It's a long-term piece of work, and it should really, if you're changing your brand, if you're reshaping your brand, content is going to be a really big part of that. And you may have to invest a lot of money before you see changes, because markets shift slowly. So when you're talking about brand, maybe don't focus on ROI. There's other measures that brand marketers use to look at perception. So you'd probably want to focus on that more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, we have questions coming in, so please keep them coming. And maybe after the next one, we'll go in and have a go at some of the questions.
All right, next point, invest in organic and thought leadership content. And this is a really big one. I actually, funnily enough, see a lot of agencies doing that right now quite well. Whether the content itself is great, I'll leave that to other people to judge, but they're putting a lot of effort into their own video on LinkedIn channel, personal branding, all that kind of stuff to show value and to show market knowledge to the people they're trying to acquire. And this is a great strategy. Whether that works for them or not, we'll see. But investing in organic content, so this is search engine optimized content and thought leadership, is a really great way to deliver ROI. And there's quite a few reasons for that. Number one, and this is really the big one, it's low cost, low dollar value cost. So right now, a lot of people in the marketing space may have spare time. If you turn that time into creating content that literally costs you nothing to produce, so you can do a video on your phone. It's not the best quality, but it could really connect with someone, because we connect as people, and it's often overlooked in the B2B world, but relationships and belief in a person will sell an account, because it's not just based on product stuff. Because when you're competing with products, most of the time you don't have the best product, or you don't have a distinguishable product value compared to your competitor. So it's often the relationship and the values that you show through all your content and the way you've dealt with someone that really will win you that contract. So if you start from the very start with some low cost content that shows you're intelligent, that shows you're a thought leader, whether it's a blog of you writing it yourself, making sure you've obviously optimized for any keywords and you have a strategy behind it. As a marketer, we can actually really start getting people in the door. And as well, the way you look at it, like I often ghostwrite, and I'm sure a lot of marketers here will ghostwrite for people across the business, helping certain people get their face out there and building a brand around them can really generate interest in the brand. Now, it's time intensive. So if you're a small marketing shop within a business, it can often be very hard to find time to really dedicate to this. And this is when you can actually empower people across the business to develop this content, because you could have a great BD guy who really knows his shit and he can talk underwater. Most of them can. So if you empower them to get on the blower, to like just be on video on LinkedIn, and if you then share it through your LinkedIn page or through your Facebook page or whatever else, even put some dollar values to get some interest in it, he or she can actually start really developing a brand around themselves that gets people in the door. And you've done nothing. You've basically just empowered him, made sure that that person is ready to go and actually on brand, which is obviously very important. But it does require some real thought. So you might need to put some time in with that person to make sure that they're doing good topics and they know what they're talking about. But you do need to put a strategy in place that really builds on itself in thought leadership. So don't be talking about stuff that you don't really have a right to talk about. So right now we're in the middle of a virus outbreak. Don't be focusing on stuff that isn't you. Like, don't just add to the conversation. You're not going to cut through with talking about Corona right now. Focus on what you know, because people in the B2B world probably have a little bit of spare time to actually engage and learn. So be that person that they come to learn from. And if you are the first person in the door when they have money to spend. Type of content that works here: video, long form blogs, white papers, really intelligent content that will engage someone and will help them learn. So you want to offer value for nothing. And then when they finally are ready to talk, they'll come to you. And obviously this can be repurposed, really importantly. So if you have someone doing something for free in your BD team or in your product team, whoever this person is working on some content, just be aware that you can probably recut it in the future to use throughout your funnel. So getting across the business, creating those relationships is how you can basically spend no money and use other people's time, which is lovely, to generate content that can generate sales. And then you can reuse it across the board.
Yeah, we've done a lot of experiment with this, and I think you're absolutely right. The thought leadership does pay, right? And I think thought leadership can be inserted. If we go back to the funnel that we talked about, it can be inserted in two different areas. Well, it can be inserted in multiple different areas, right? But there are certain areas that you're going to see an ROI much faster than some of the other areas, right? So we do a lot of content on LinkedIn, right? And we put a lot of videos out there and all that stuff, just like you described. As an agency, we do a lot of that. Where you are going to see the most impact is for nurturing a prospect or a lead. That's going to give you the fastest impact, because what you don't need to figure out is distribution. So what do I mean by that is, let's say your salesperson is talking to a potential prospect. Number one, they have to make sure, so for us, for example, we have to make sure that, or the client that we work with, they have to add them immediately after the first face-to-face contact or even a phone call. They have to add them on LinkedIn, right? What then happens is, let's say in usual sales cycle, you have a call now, and then a week or two later, it's going to be the second call, right? That's the second touch point. Now, what we make sure happens is right after this call, they're gonna connect on LinkedIn, and they're gonna be distributing. They're gonna start producing content on the LinkedIn profile. What that does is that individual starts seeing this salesperson or whoever it is that they're dealing with multiple times before they get to the end line, right? And that changes everything, because they get to know their personality, they get to know they also see that, hey, they seem to know what they're talking about, right? So I think that's the part that you can see massive ROI in order to accelerate the pipeline, basically do pipeline acceleration and close the deal faster. That's one thing. And we get comments all the time from both our clients and our own prospects that, hey, I just saw that video, that was really cool, or, you know, really good point on that, whatever it is. Or just the fact that they're liking it or maybe commenting is proof enough that, you know, we're in front of them, especially when they're not a client yet. The component that is probably more expensive is going to be the awareness stage of like getting people in the funnel, because you need to figure out distribution, right? You need to figure out how you're going to find people, or your content has to be so good that people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's original, and I'm going to contact these guys. So I think that's a two component. And when I say nurture, you don't necessarily need to just focus on LinkedIn. You could have just blog posts that you present to your salespeople when they say, you know, they shoot that out and say, hey, we wrote this piece of article on this topic, and that's really good. Yeah, the last point I would say, just to add on a lot of things that you've mentioned over here, is you could basically, if video is too much and it's sometimes hard, is, I think this is a big Gary Vee thing, record on the go, like record while they're doing something, okay, and just repurpose that and have it as a piece of video. So they're going through the motion at the thing that is interesting to your prospect, record that and present that to them. So
yeah, that's a really great point. So I think a lot of us will have experts across the business who'll run training sessions. So if you're an agency, you'd have SEO experts, you'd have PPC experts, and you'd probably be offering internal training to either sales staff or anyone else. If you then record that and put that online, as hey, watch our head of SEO talk about how to write great content or how to source links or whatever else. If you add that for free, I mean, you're not giving away the secret sauce, because there's a hell of a lot more that goes into it than whatever you're showing in training. But you're really showing thought leadership, and it's free, and just set up a video. No one's going to worry about the actual quality of the video if it's that kind of session as well. So it would be a perfectly good way to approach it. Free piece of content, really.
That's it. All right, we got one question from Ignatius. With a very limited marketing budget per month, under 5K, in a niche product space, where would you spend your marketing dollars? You want to have a go at this?
Yeah, look, niche product spaces are interesting. I'm hoping beyond hope, and we'll get this kind of into the next slide, that you have a really target market as well. Because if you know exactly who you need to go after in this product space, so if you know job title, industry, whatever else, you can build an entire funnel for something like 5K, very, very, one that's really highly performing. So maybe if you know your people and you know who you're going after, and I had 5K, I'd probably look at spending money on a high converting landing page. Maybe I'll just use Unbounce or something that doesn't sit on my actual website. I'd look at probably some pretty cheap content, maybe some blogs or something, maybe even look at a kind of thought leadership video. And I'd space out a little funnel with a little bit of SEM, a very small amount, to kind of go after those exact job titles. Now, that probably won't deliver a huge amount of sales as going wide, but you should deliver some really highly qualified leads to yourself. This is the difference between going wide and going after everyone than going after people who you know you can convert. So if you built a pipeline just for those people, and you focused on a strong web page, a few pieces of strong content that sit at the awareness and then at the consideration stage, and a strong lead magnet, that would probably be enough to start generating leads.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things are going to be happening in-house. You know,
5K, yeah,
a lot of things you gotta shoot your video yourself, and just maybe touch it up a little bit. Maybe don't even touch it up at all, and use that material and go really post-industrial.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know what the product is, it's obviously a niche space, but if You could just, if you have a product expert who could show how to use the product, just video them doing that. Show the value of the product itself. That could be part of your page. I mean, if someone needs that niche product and you get the right person to the page, the product should hopefully sell itself.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So next point, kind of building on what I've said there, is getting real with your data. There's a lot of points here. And we're going to start off with the vanity metrics. Data and your understanding of it is either your biggest strength or it's your biggest weakness. You really need to ignore the vanity metrics when it comes to ROI, because it doesn't mean a whole lot. Being number one on Google sounds great. I've had agencies, and I've worked for agencies that used to sell it all the time. It's not great. It can be huge. It can also mean absolutely nothing. Being number one for Google for a term that generates 20 clicks that don't generate any sales doesn't mean a lot. What does really matter is generating engagement from the organic clicks you get. So you could have a much wider strategy where you sit at 5 or 6 for most of your key terms, but they generate clicks that matter, and it could actually cost you a whole lot less. So if someone's trying to sell you number one, probably don't focus on that. If they can deliver you number one for a term that you know matters, great. I mean, that's perfect. But we need to focus on metrics that matter for each piece of content you develop, as well as for every marketing activity you develop. So if you're focusing on the wrong thing, so for example, SEM, if you're focusing on, I generate tons of clicks from that, that's great. But you might have paid actually a cheap price for them. But if you're not actually generating that next step of activity from that ad, so whether that is a click through to another page, so maybe you're just using it on a blog and you just need them to click through to the About Us, and that's really the focus of what you're trying to do with that SEM activity, that's what you should be focusing on. If you are doing a high converting piece of SEM activity and you need to generate an inquiry from it, that is the metric that matters. Clicks, where it sits in the sales, in the ad position, that's not what matters. It's actually the metric that you want and that you need to focus on. And you need to understand this for every piece of marketing activity you do.
No, that's a really good point. By the way, if anyone has questions, we're getting towards the end of the chat. So if you have questions, make sure you pop it up in there. And I wanted to right. One of the things about data that you mentioned is this is a perfect time to focus on data, because every single thing that you're going to do for the next 3 months is going to be trackable. Your salesperson is going to be sitting at home sending emails, trackable. You're not going to be doing events, which is hard to sometimes track. You're going to do webinars. You're going to be running more probably after the frenzy and the hysteria dies down. Probably going to start doing more ads, which is again going to be trackable. So this is probably the best time to start looking at your data, because everything that you're going to be doing in the next 3 months while we all sit at home is going to be trackable. So it's a good time to start thinking about your marketing data.
And look, that's exactly what the next point is. Go deeper with it. So we've got time. Just as we just said, you have time to focus on this. Go deeper into your data. You need to understand who's actually reading your content. And this goes back to the point of understanding who your target market is. So if you can actually look at everyone who's engaging with you right now and the people who you're actually successfully selling to, if you can extrapolate that out and work out exactly what demographic, exactly what job, everything like that. If you can build out a persona that you know is interested in your product and who is engaging with you, you can build out an entire sales funnel just for them, and that will convert. You will know it will convert because you've seen that they're already interacting with you well, and all you need to do is personalize content for that person. A really good example here would be an accountant who is looking at doing BAS statements. If they found that tradies could really get some help here, and they were the ones who, if you talk to them the right way, they would understand, oh, look, go to the accountant, he'll get your money back on your taxes. You could build a really well-targeted campaign just to small business owners who are tradies who need to get money back on their tax. And if you think about the current situation we're in right now, tax is going to actually matter, because there's a whole lot of benefits coming out that I could not tell you what they are. And I hope as an accountant, if you're listening, you could. So there's going to be a lot of small and medium business owners who do need tax support right now. So if you're actually talking about that as an area to go after, if I was an accountant, I'd actually be building out my Corona tax help ad campaign right now. But if you could build a journey with the content that goes along with that, and the right pieces along the funnel with a landing page that converts, you will have business, and it will cost you pretty cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a question from Guy. Any tips regarding providing B2B content for enterprise where there are several stakeholders that form very different buying personas?
Yeah, this is a really good point, and it's actually a wider discussion about ABM marketing, or ABM. We really need to understand, obviously, what kind of content each person interacts with. But if you develop your personas correctly, you will understand what matters to them more. So if you're talking about a CEO at the very top level, probably doesn't care about everything else that someone else might care about in that funnel. So if we're talking about like a SaaS product, anything online, at the lower level, the person who's going to actually be working with it, they care about usability, they care about how easy it's going to make their job. As you go higher, there's less about that, and there's more about what kind of deliverables they get. Is it a lower cost? Easy on my cogs, whatever it is. At the top level, there's a different opinion of what matters. So you need to produce content that focuses on that. So if I'm producing, say, if I'm running an ABM campaign, I will produce content that is only shown to certain seniority levels in a company. So the message I would deliver would be different throughout. So maybe I have a white paper or a prospectus or whatever that I would recut maybe 3 or 4 times to remove the value, to change the value prop to be slightly different. But the overarching message and the narrative of who you are doesn't change, because you need them within the organization to be saying the same things about you. But you just need to shift the focus. So maybe at the lower end, you're talking about how to make you more productive at work, how to make your job easier, and whatever else. And for the ads that go to the higher level people, maybe you're focusing on something different. So save money on your software costs or whatever it is. That's what you'd really want to focus on. So that's how I'd approach developing different buying personas within the same organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the guy, you're on the right track with regards to, so you build your ICP, your ideal customer profile, who that is. And then from there, you branch out in terms of like, okay, who are the personas that deal with us when we're going to sell? And there are going to be 3 different types of personas. They're going to be the decision maker or decision makers sometimes, depending on the size of the organization that you're going after. And if you're going after enterprise, it's usually decision makers. And one key decision maker is going to be signing on the contract. You're going to have influencers, and then you're going to have detractors. Let's take, for example, an IT purchase, usually very complex. It's going to touch multiple different parts of the business. You have, let's say, maybe the CTO is the person who's going to be signing on the contract. But then you have the IT managers and the solution architect, and all these people who are going to be most probably influencers. You want them as influencers. And you got detractors, who is, for example, finance. That in a lot of situations is detractors. For us, for example, sometimes detractors when we're selling could be even marketing. Marketing would say, they might not want to interact with us because they're like, oh, maybe I should know this. If I take this agency and show it to my boss, it would maybe make me look bad or whatever it is. Sometimes we have even marketing as a detractor for when we want to work with an organization. Sometimes they're an influencer. Finance is also a detractor for us. We have to talk their language. We've got to talk ROI. We've got to talk about, if we're doing this at this point, how does that turn into revenue for the organization, cash flow? So you have to take that into consideration. And if you're going after enterprise, your campaign is going to be a lot more personalized, as you were mentioning, Don. So your campaign is not going to be one message anymore. You're going to be investing a lot more resources, money, time, effort, in order to personalize your campaign so that it touches multiple different stakeholders, concerns, motivations, pains, whatever it is. And that is the main component that you want to take into consideration. There's a great case study for a UK company trying to win a telco deal with one of the largest telcos in Europe. And what they did was they created like a kind of like a mini booklet, right? It was an ebook. And what they did was, in the ebook, the exact opposite person to the organization wrote to the other person. So there was a part that the CEO wrote to the CEO, the CFO wrote to the CFO, the CTO wrote to the CTO, and they were explaining why their solution is going to address a lot of the problems of that organization. Now, there are multiple things that are going in here. First of all, it was one booklet for one account, right? That account wouldn't have applied to any other account. It's a large deal, so it makes sense. Number two, there are multiple there's executive buy-in in that. And executive buy-in, the CTO, there's nobody who can speak the language of the CTO as well as the CTO, right? The sales guy is not going to be able to convey that. So I think you got to think that way. You got to think that your investment is going to increase, your personalization is going to increase, because if it doesn't, guess what? The detractor is going to come in and they're going to poke hole in your argument, and your deal is going to be dead. Or you're not going to be able to develop the influencers that you need to push the deal through. Whatever it is, I think you got to think larger amount of investment.
Yeah, and it's very true in the SaaS space. I think the CTO example is great, and especially marketing. I know that is very true. So marketers, everyone listening here, you will have the software you like to use. So if you're in a new organization that doesn't have that software, you may be hating life and wanting to switch over. So you're an influencer now. So you kind of want to think about how you react to certain levels of technology if you're trying to sell technology yourself. So how do you make people's life easier, and how do you make it harder? And if you can develop those relationships with content and get someone to like, oh, I wish we had that in our organization, that's the start of actually building a bottom-up sales strategy that will get results. Because if you have agitators going, we really should be trying this piece of software, you will slowly get that to happen without really even necessarily doing a whole lot. And people do that, and that's a branding exercise that really develops great relationships at the bottom level that will eventually turn into relationships at the top level.
Very true. Very true. Okay, well, this has been a great talk. I don't see any questions popping up. We've had some really good questions. Oh, we got the summary. Let's do the summary.
Yeah, the summary. All right, summary. So key points, make sure you prioritize, get the right piece of content at the right time. That way you make sure you're not wasting money on stuff that's not ready to go yet and that won't give you a result. Maximize the content you use. Make sure you use it more than once, always, if you can. Goal set, have clear goals in mind, have a dollar value. That's how you actually work out ROI. Costings, understand the business inside and out. At every step, you need to understand what it costs right now and what you want it to cost. Invest in the organic content and thought leadership. It costs time, it costs intelligence. It doesn't necessarily cost money, so it's great for ROI. And data, really understand it. We went through a few examples here, but you need to understand your data and the people who interact with you. And that's it. That's the 6 points to maximize your ROI.
I love it. Thank you very much for that. This was a really great session. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Donald, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, if you want to have a chat. I'll just drop my LinkedIn in the chat there. Feel free to reach out. Happy to chat about marketing if you have any questions. Always find it an interesting topic to talk on, content. One of my pets are here, so yeah, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, working from home, huh? I just had a delivery ring the bell and guess what? Can't get it.
Oh
Now
no.
that's a walk to the post office. So yeah, working from home, absolutely. We got one question
Yep.
from Suman. Who says, Donald, quick question: do you use any software to help you manage your content, and how much content do you usually generate every month?
Monthly it's really dependent on what we're doing at the moment. Now we generate a huge amount of content in our educational space, and we do try and reuse as much of it as we can. So it's more about recutting. This is we're a pretty big business, so it's not just myself. We also have a comms and content team on the B2C side that generate a very large amount of content every month. Now, personally, I actually like to use Trello. We don't use Trello at the moment at First State Super. I find that's a really good content management system. It's not overly automated, so it actually allows you to use it yourself. When I was at Drive and Car Advice, so they're pretty large publications, I think we were producing a huge amount of content every month. Our content producer, who was very skilled at managing content, he used Trello, and he had built up a great system that really worked with a huge amount of content producers putting their work in there. Trello can be set up so you can manage where you're at with each piece of content. You include all your links. It's very simple to use and easy to stand up, and it can be customized. So I'd recommend Trello for just its ease of use.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Now for what have we got on the next slide?
Go to the next slide. There we go.
Cool. So thanks everyone for joining this webinar. Really appreciate it. The next webinar is going to be next week, I think. And we're going to be talking about the toilet paper industry. We've got Tim Baxter, who's the growth marketing manager at Who Gives a Crap. This is going to be a really, just like this conversation, it's going to be a very amazing talk because he had a lens into Corona and what was happening with Corona that I was very fascinated when I had a chat to him, and the trend that he was seeing, they were seeing in China, what was happening to their stock, and then how they saw that move across the world because they have multiple offices. So they're a toilet paper company. They're like they donate 50% of their profit to charitable causes, and they have like premium products. So that's definitely worth checking out. Make sure to sign up for that. And in order to stay up to scratch with everything that we're doing in the next slide, make sure to sign up to our Slack channel. We constantly post on there, and the recordings, the upcoming events, and any interesting piece of content that we come across, we'll definitely post over there. So make sure you check out our Slack channel as well. And on that note, I think that's pretty much it. Scott, Donald, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. It's been a great chat. Hopefully people got tons out of it. Hopefully go out and develop some great content.
No, appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Donald. Take care.